the Modern Assyrian program on ANB SAT. My name is Carmen Moran. Keristofer was born in Iran and immigrated to the U.S. at the age of 12 as a refugee. He attended the Turlock school system and graduated from Turlock High School. He then went to Whittier College and earned a BA in economics and political science. After college, he earned an MS in foreign service from Georgetown University. Keristofer has spent his career in the energy sector in corporate development, strategy, and business development. He spent much of his career overseas, predominantly in Dubai, developing energy projects in the Middle East with Shell Oil, the government of Abu Dhabi Renewable Energy Initiative, and his own consulting company. He returned to Turlock in 2015 to take care of his elderly parents and reestablish roots in Turlock. He is now running for the Turlock Unified School District's Board of Trustees position for Area 6. Welcome to the Modern Assyrian on ANB SAT. My name is Carmen Morad. My special guest today is Mr. Keristofer Seryani. Welcome.
Thank you.
I know you're in the middle of getting ready for Election Day. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Keristofer, let's share with our viewers your very unique history of growing up in Turlock, of graduating from Turlock High School, and the amazing career that you've had, your education. Share with us a little bit about your first job at the Assyrian-American Civic Club.
Thank you. I'll start off, I guess, with I was born in Iran. My parents came to the U.S. as refugees. I was at the age of 12, and we settled in Turlock. And one of my first jobs was when I was 13 at the Civic Club as a waiter. Did that through my high school years. It was on weekends when we were paid $17 per day as a full flat shift, and that paid for our expenses for the whole week.
You know, we each have our own history when it comes with our social organizations or church. They really do play a big role in our lives. Keristofer, I want to talk to you about the position that you're running for. I have been interviewing candidates running for City Council. Your position is very unique. It is for the Turlock Unified School District, a very important position that has to do with education. It has to do with the unique background that you will bring to this position when it comes to making decisions. Tell us a little bit about why you chose to run for this position, because I know it's a non-paid position as a volunteer.
Correct.
But what has prompted you to run for this position, especially for the district, the Area 6 that you're running for?
Sure. Let me just give a brief explanation of the district. So the Turlock Unified School District oversees the elementary schools, the middle schools, the high school, and the adult school in the Turlock area. It has a budget of roughly $160 million, and there are about 14,000 students that are part of the district. The city is divided into 7 areas, and I am running for the seat representing Area 6. This is the 7 members of the school board decide the policies for the district and the overall strategy of the direction where the school district is heading towards, and then they hire and are responsible for the performance of the superintendent. The superintendent, of course, with their staff and the teachers, run the day-to-day operations of the education system, but the school board is the entity that is accountable and governs that body. For me, education has been an extremely important part of my upbringing. My parents, one of the things in the back of my mind always has been, my mom used to say, wealth comes and goes. You can be a millionaire and the next day some event or catastrophic event can happen. You can be bankrupt. But your education always remains with you. If you have an education, you can build up again. But if you don't, and your money's taken away from you, you have nothing. So that was the impetus behind my success, or me always pushing to make sure that I achieved and attained as much education as I could. When I moved back to Turlock a few years ago, after having spent so many years outside the area, I wanted to give back to my community. And this was where I went to high school, my junior high. This is the environment, the community that shaped who I am today. And as an English learner, as a first generation student, something that a lot of our students in this district are facing, because our demographics in the district are over 60% of students come from socioeconomic disadvantaged community households, and more than 25% are English learners. So it's a very special, unique district, unlike others in the state of California, that I felt I could bring a different perspective, my own experiences and how I went through the system, and how I was a success story of this district's plan, and how I can actually ensure that people that follow, students that follow, are given every opportunity they can to achieve their potential.
You know, Christopher, we spoke earlier, we talked about how unique your background, all of us as we move here, as young kids, as those who are brought here by our parents. We have the unique opportunities that perhaps our parents didn't have growing up in the countries that we come from. You made your success story not only just for you as an individual, but also for your parents.
Absolutely.
And what's really important about you running for this position is that you want to make sure that you become that voice for that demographic that you just explained, for those kids that are English language learners, whereas their parents might not be as familiar with the direction and guidance and the mentorship that needs to be there for the kids to really feel that they can do it. Tell us a little bit about the way that you navigated through the system, the education system, where you went after Turlock High School and what you studied, and how that will be really a decision maker on the Turlock Unified School District for you.
Sure. When we moved here, English was my fifth language. So it was difficult at the age of 12 trying to learn a language and to assimilate into, or to just acclimate to the environment of the United States and in Turlock. So I spent, I remember it was about 2 months in ESL classes, and I pushed myself to learn English, to just force, to speak it, whether it was correct or incorrect, whether I pronounced it right or my accent was off, whatever the case, just keep trying. And don't be afraid to make mistakes, because that's how we learn. We make mistakes, and a child falls a few times before they learn how to walk and run. So by the time I was in 8th grade, I was already in advanced English. And when I moved to high school, I took all the honors classes and the English advanced classes that were offered, because I knew I wanted to go to college, and I wanted to go to the best college I could get into, or I wanted to try something outside of this area. I wanted to be independent and not sort of limit myself. It was just disguise the limit. And my parents allowed me. I mean, at first they were very apprehensive of a 17-year-old kid going away to college. And I remember that one of the only schools I had applied to was Harvard. And when I didn't get accepted, I cried for a week, because I thought my future was doomed. I was doomed to fail from then on. And luckily, from my parents' perspective, they said, great, you're not going to Boston. You're going to stay in California, but you can pick anywhere in California. We'll allow that now. And I toured the different campuses around California. I wanted a small liberal arts school. Turlock High was around 3,000 students, and that was probably bigger than I wanted. I wanted more individualized attention, and I learned better in small classrooms. So I did a tour of the liberal arts colleges in California, and I was fortunate that Whittier College gave me a scholarship that allowed me to attend. And when I visited the campus, there was a gut feeling that said, this is home, this feels right. It was only 1,200 students, so it was a third of my high school. I had incredible education at Whittier. I double majored in economics and political science. I was student body president and a national finalist for the Truman Scholarship. I had professors that kept pushing me, and every time there was another project they were working on, they said, you're going to be our teaching assistant, you're going to be our research assistant. And they kept just throwing things at me and to just say, try it, you might like it. And when I was looking at graduate schools, most graduate schools sort of want you to have a 2-year experience, work experience, before you go back to further your education. I wasn't ready for the workforce, but I wanted to go to school further. So I applied. They said, don't limit yourself, apply to the best schools. So I applied to the Harvard, the Yale, the Columbia, Georgetown, and I was fortunate with the right letters of recommendation, and I had good grades. I got accepted to most of the schools I applied to. And I decided to go to Georgetown School of Foreign Service, where I got my master's degree. At Georgetown, when I first went, my intentions were to study more in the human rights field. But as I took the classes, I felt a calling towards international business. I felt I could do more good to society through the private sector than through the public sector. So after my Georgetown degree, I worked in strategy consulting in Boston, then moved back here for a short stint and worked at Gallo. And then I was recruited by Shell Oil and moved to Houston, and that's where my career, they moved me to United Arab Emirates, Dubai, where I worked for 10 years, both at Shell and the government of Abu Dhabi, as well as my own consulting firm, where I was advising private sector entities as well as governments on structuring energy infrastructure projects. So when I came back, because my parents are older and I wanted to be closer to them, I felt a 16-hour flight was too far and too long, and it wasn't as easy for me to see them. And I was coming home for a month, twice a year, and that wasn't enough. So when I moved back, I felt the calling that I had to give back to my community. I've been away for too long. This is where it all started from, and it's like a full circle. And this is my chance now to allow someone else, or many people, many children in this education system, to have similar experiences that I did and to achieve their potential.
What an outstanding story.
Thank you.
I love that. You are a success, and how lucky is Turlock?
Thank you.
Particularly our community. We're very proud to have a young man of your age with really such a success story that resonates with us as children of refugees and immigrants, the opportunities that we have. And I'm so impressed with your love of your community and culture. The giving back is very important. We often talked about on this program and many other programs about civic engagement. The new Assyrianism that we talk about in the West is wrapped around education. Education, 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 as we say. And to have a member of the Turlock Unified School District to make those decisions with that mindset of the demographic that we just talked about, that you mentioned earlier within the district. Is this position that you're running for, that will be on the ballot on November 6th, that we're encouraging everyone to vote for you, is that only by people living in that certain area, or is it at large for members of the residents of Turlock?
A few years ago, they moved to the areas, the 7 areas. So I will be representing Area 6, and only residents of Area 6 will be able to see my name on their ballot.
Okay.
And
it's just like the districting for
correct,
city
for
council.
City Council.
I see.
Except there's 7 areas for the school board, and there are only 4 for the City Council.
Correct.
So
correct.
our areas are smaller.
Correct.
And much more meandered.
Very interesting. How many schools are there in Turlock, in Unified School District?
I could be wrong, but my recollection is there are 9 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, 2 high schools.
Mm-hmm. And which ones in which areas are that you're aware of are mostly Assyrian populated, where our kids attend?
So they're fairly, for the elementary schools, I think in my area, Madaris, I live near Madaris Elementary School, Walnut is a magnet school. There are quite a few Assyrians there. Kroll, I believe, has a large population of Assyrians.
Yes.
Earl as well, which is more the newer development. There's a large amount of Assyrians living there. So our community is pretty big. I mean, I would be the first Assyrian, to my understanding, that would be on the Turlock School Board. So for the amount of members and students that have gone through the Turlock Unified School District over the years and how big of a community we are, we're fairly spread out throughout. So it's not just concentrating in one school.
How exciting is that, Keristofer? I'm very excited when I drive around town, when I see campaign signs with people that I recognize, and especially when they're Assyrian names. It really does bring out this pride that we all have that has to do with, oh my gosh, you are the third Assyrian on the November 6th ballot that we will be voting for. And this is the first...
Luckily, none of us are running against each other.
Exactly. Yes, that's a good thing. But I believe you're the first Assyrian to run for Turlock Unified School District. Is that a correct
I believe so,
assumption?
too. I haven't looked through their record books, but from my understanding, that is correct.
And how long of a term is this term?
It's a 4-year term.
4-year term. Okay, fantastic. So what I'm
I
trying
want
to...
to go back to
Yes.
the giving back to the community and stress that it's this community, not just the Assyrian community, but the Turlock community has helped me. And I think it is not only our obligation, but it's something, the only way we can break out of cyclical poverty, and empower our community and to go to greater heights, both the larger community and the Assyrian community to escalate, is by people coming back and supporting the next generation. If we have, if people just go through the school and then move away, we have sort of has this brain drought, and we need to make sure that people have incentives or have opportunities to come back and to really give back and to help the next generation.
It absolutely is the way that it should be, because it is through our experiences that we know what needs to be reimbursed, as we call it. How do we give back to a community? For example, when you were a student, when you first came to this country and sat in a classroom, learning the language, who on that Turlock Unified School District connected with you, for example? Who was making decisions that for you and other students? And we know this is ongoing. There are children as we speak today that are arriving, that are new to this country. So imagine having a voice of someone who has been through that same process, that will be making decisions that are brought before the school district with the mindset that you are their voice. That's very important.
Absolutely. For me, when we came here, and I was in the school district, the school board seemed so like it was a body of higher powered individuals, but there was no connection. I didn't feel that I could go and speak my views or say, as a student, this is how I feel, or what are you doing to make my experiences better. I was actually elected to be on the school board as a student representative my senior year of high school. So I sat in the school board meetings, and even with a seat on the table, I never felt that it was welcome. So in my mind, I am there representing my constituents and the students of the district. It's my obligation to make myself available and to listen to all the constituents, from whether they're in elementary school, in kindergarten, or they're retired and don't have any connection to the school system.
I really like that. I think it provides a kind of a mentorship. It provides, for example, someone watching this program, our conversation right now, saying that, wow, if Keristofer can do it, perhaps I can follow in his footsteps.
And do it better.
and not only do it better, but perhaps reach out to you for ideas. For when you talked about, having such aspirations, but when you don't exactly get into the college you want, that it's okay. You can still find your way and still become a success story.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, it's whenever I receive an email, whether it's through Facebook or some family friend saying, this is where our child is a senior, or they want to go through college, they're struggling, can you help them? I pick up the phone and I call and I speak with them and I say, do it. it's tough. It's especially for our community. We're so attached to our families, and that departure and going away and living in a dorm. For me, I was 17. I had never lived outside the house for too long of a period. I was in Future Business Leaders of America in high school, so we traveled quite a bit on conferences, and I was a state officer. So I had been away from home for week-long periods, but I never had a roommate where I was dealing with non-academic issues, that you're growing up, you have real life experiences, and we're not used to that as a community. So that was the hardships I had to overcome. And I remember through my first semester in college, I would call home twice a day. And it slowly, the calls, were like once a day, and it was just like I'm doing fine, yes, everything's great, I went to class, it was great. But in the beginning, I needed that additional assurance from home. And so just telling people it's okay to go through that. It's normal. But try it. There's no, and if you don't make it the first time, try it again. And eventually, it'll become easier.
Those are very wise words. Keristofer, in closing, what would you like to leave our audience with a message? Not just the constituents that will be voting for you to make sure that you're elected to this position, but every member of the Assyrian audience watching. What message do you have for them, young and old?
My message is more of, when you vote for me, rest assured that I will be available. I'll be very transparent in my decision making. I will make myself as accessible as possible so that your thoughts and your inputs and my decisions are fully clarified, and you know exactly what direction we're heading into.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you for having
spending
me.
time with us. This concludes our conversation with candidate for the Turlock Unified School District Area 6, Keristofer Seryani. We'll see you next time on The Modern Assyrian. Welcome to the Modern Assyrian program on ANB SAT. My name is